and welcome back for another 31 Days of Horror 2016 segment. This time we're going a little bit into the past with a film I'm almost 100% sure I have seen before, but don't remember it whatsoever. So, it qualifies!
It's easy to
works.
not remember.
Yes, we watched it and still forgot about it.
Yeah.
And that's the 1974 anthology film From Beyond the Grave.
Yeah, over there.
The film has a very Hammer feel to it, very British, right, feel to it, and it's like all, most anthology films, it has a wraparound and then 4 segments, right? The interesting thing about this one is the cast. Because it is an anthology film, it has a huge amount of people. Now I'm going to chime out a bunch of names here. I'm not going to go through everything they've been in. You may not recognize the name, but I'll tell you, if you're into Hammer films and British films and old 1970 films, you will know all of these people. Ian Bannon, Ian Carmichael, Peter Cushing. Everybody, if you're into horror, you know Peter Cushing.
Even I.
Especially if you're into Hammer, right? It's Vincent Price, Peter Cushing. That's the group. Well, he plays the owner of this antique shop, where essentially the wraparound. He is the wraparound story. But it also has Diana Dors, Margaret Leighton, Donald Pleasance. You know Donald Pleasance.
I do. Stop putting me on the spot.
I'm going to click on him, and it'll pop up what he's known for.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, she does. I mean, the picture here is the young. It's the picture on IMDb is from Beyond the Grave. That's his character. That's kind of funny. But also has David Warner and Angela Pleasance.
Why am I supposed to know that?
Well, did you not recognize the last name?
Pleasant. What?
Donald and Angela. I believe it's his wife.
That says Warner.
Why don't we just talk about Donald?
One. Oh!
Where are you? Holy
You were on the other
smokes.
one.
But, so a slew of people who have been in a ton of things. A ton. Literally, it'd probably take me a half an hour just to go through all these people and what they've been in that you would know, right? If you don't recognize the name, don't feel bad. Some of them are a little old school, and if you grew up in the 60s and 70s, you would probably know their names.
Well, this was 74.
Right, this is 74, and a lot of these people, that was their heydays, so that's when they were doing a lot of their stuff. The film had 3 writers on it, which is not unsurprising considering it's an anthology film.
I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't 4 though, right? One for each of the segments
I could see that. I could see that, but I think it would have been. It's quite possible they had one writer and then the other ones sort of, they didn't like one of the stories and somebody was like, "Oh, here you go, I've got something," and they sort of threw it in and they were just picked and choosed, right? So it could have been anything. It's not so much like the anthology films where we get, they invite a whole bunch of directors, right? These days, and they all submit things and then they make a movie out of it, right? It's not quite the same thing. But it's directed by Kevin Connor, who the name may not seem familiar, but he is the director behind Great Expectations from '91. I mean, I think the movie's been done a few times. Frankenstein from 2004, not the old one. And, you know, a whole bunch of other ones as well. I'm not going to really get into it. He's done, just like all the actors, a slew of films. You know, you just scroll through them. And some of them are... Yes, he did a Heart to Heart. One of the movies.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, it's back then. It's all sorts of things. But... anyways, so everybody involved in this film is quite, you know, seasoned, right? Some of them are closer to the end of their career, some of them are in the middle, some of them are somewhat closer to the beginning of their careers. So it's not it's surprising that in terms of that aspect of the film, I have no complaints, right? As long as you're into 70s horror. Because it's not the same as what we see today.
No, but see, but that's one of the things that I liked about it. Because I like that. Not that I like the 70s or whatever, but I like older.
They're a little
like
slower. They're a little slower in terms of telling. It's more about the story that's being told rather than, you know, the visuals and stuff. Though there are some pretty cool visuals going on in this, considering the time period, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing as how we're talking about the story, we brought that up. Like I said, we got to wrap around. Peter Cushing is the owner of an antique store. If you ever watched Friday the 13th, the television series...
Oh, yeah, I watched that.
It kind of resembled that. Why? Because they had a whole bunch of cursed items in an antique store. Yeah. Well, we have not necessarily cursed items, but for some reason, they do lead to, you know, some not so good things.
Yeah, I forget what he says. Oh, you get something was purchased. Remember?
Oh yeah.
That was good. I
there's
that.
I can't remember what it was. But anyway, yeah, that was a good line too.
Yeah, it was.
So, like I said, 4 segments. Essentially, every time somebody comes into the shop, they buy something, and that leads to one of the, you know, portions of the anthology. The first one, he comes in and he buys a mirror. An antique mirror. And he brings it home, and he kind of lives in like a bachelor pad apartment.
Yeah.
But he seems to be...
He likes antiques.
He likes antiques. And he seems to be... I'd say he's well off, right? He's,
to be able to buy
right, for all that kind of stuff. And yes, it is like a bachelor apartment, but it's a large, very large apartment in terms of size. Like, I mean, the ceilings had to be like 12-foot ceilings type thing. It was huge.
I wouldn't say the apartment itself was large, but you know, he's got to do something to be able to pay for all that stuff.
So he essentially gets this, and then they have a party. He has a party, and you know, because it was a thing.
Yes.
You have a party, you gotta have a seance. And we all know how that's gonna end, right?
Don't do it, people. Don't do it.
No. So, they have a seance, and of course, he's got the mirror. Well, the mirror is a doorway to another, essentially, dimension, I guess. And, well, bad things happen.
Of course.
And we'll leave it at that. So, enter customer number 2. Who comes in and, well, he came in twice. Did he buy something the first time?
No. The first time he wanted to buy something and he was not able to buy something because he couldn't show credentials.
Right. He wanted to buy something, but he couldn't buy it. Right. But then eventually he came back and Didn't he take it? Yeah, he just took it.
So yeah, he never bought anything?
He never bought anything.
Yeah.
But the thing with him was, he was, I guess he was
He was a war veteran.
an officer in the war.
Yes. But he didn't, yeah, so he didn't really do anything, like in battle.
No, yeah, I think he was more of a, I don't know what he was, but I can't remember. They said it in the movie, I just don't remember.
There's a lot going on.
But yeah, he seemed like he was a little bit, that in the war he had a certain station. And now that he's, the war's over and he's at home, well, he's not taking to liking his new home life. He is no longer in charge in his home life. And his wife essentially tells him what to do and what's going on. And he's not really dealing with this so well. So when he comes across essentially another war veteran who is peddling matches and shoelaces on the street, he ends up feeling a kinship with him. And you know how some guys will go out to the bar when they're not, happy at home and then drink until all night and then they come home and, you see that story happen all the time. Instead of doing that, what this guy does is he essentially gives money and buys, stuff off of this war veteran and eventually develops a friendship with him. And then, there's some nefarious things that go on.
This one surprised me, like, the most.
Yeah.
I swear to God. This one was like, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it was... Yeah, I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but it kind of just sort of flipped a switch, and next thing you know, it was like...
I know.
This is happening now? Like, where did that come from? And then it plays off, and then it just... Yeah, it gets even, like, goes to the end, and you're just like, this one was, I could not have called this happening.
No, not at all. No.
So, yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. And then, so, moving on to third customer. Third customer comes in, and he wants a snuff box. And... the snuff box he wants is, well, rather expensive. I believe it was probably silver. Mm-hmm. And so what he does is he switches the price on the snuff box to the cheap snuff box. And, of course, just like in the last one, Mr. Peter Cushing is no dummy. He knows the guy stole the metal. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't care. You see... It's not so much about buying the object.
It's getting it out of the store.
It's about giving it to a customer, right? And so, even when the guy switches the price and he opens up, he goes, "Oh, that'll be $5 or £5." Mm-hmm. He doesn't argue it at all. So when the customer comes back and goes, "How about 4?"
Yeah, seriously. I was
so not only does he switch the price, he's like, then he tries to negotiate with him. And Peter Cushing's just like, okay. So he gives the snuff box to him. Now, this is the one item out of all 4.
It doesn't
really go with the story. 2 of them directly go with the story. One is related to the story. This one...
No.
I couldn't figure it out whatsoever.
Do we even see it?
No, I don't even think we see it ever again. The only thing I could think of was because it is a silver snuff box, it generally would only be owned by somebody who has money, and this guy has money. Mm-hmm. Okay? He's one of those guys who he's got like a mansion.
Yeah.
Like, and the weird thing about this one is he gets what they deemed an elemental. They called it an elemental. So an invisible creature attaches itself to his shoulder. And there is a clairvoyant of sorts, kind of a real weirdo of a lady on the train with him, who's just like, "Oh my God, you've got an elemental!"
Yeah,
and he's like,
weird.
"What?
Yeah.
Get away from me, you crazy lady!" But she's continually, "Oh my God, this is a really interesting elemental you got there." And of course he's just like, "Oh my God, when does my train stop?" But eventually, she hands him the card, and he's just like, "I'm out of here." And what ends up happening is the elemental starts attacking his wife. And it gets to the point where he believes the clairvoyant and contacts her, and she comes over to perform some kind of a exorcism, I guess. Right? And then it just sort of goes from there. And the exorcism scene is an interesting scene, that's for sure.
Well, it's just so funny also because we're used to seeing stuff like today, right? And that's like in the 70s, and so it's just it's different.
It is different. So that concludes his little journey. So enter, customer number 4. And number 4 buys probably one of the best things in the store.
That was kind of awesome.
It was kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I'd put it in my house.
No. Listen, if we ever get a freaking house, you're not putting a door like that.
Yes.
No.
So he buys a door. A very gorgeously hand-carved, ornate door with a giant head on it.
Yes, it was very interesting. Yes.
Right? So he brings it back to his, I'd say, upscale.
Oh, yes.
It was an apartment, I think, as well, wasn't it?
No, it had upstairs. I think it was a house.
Was it a house?
I think it was a house. Maybe like a townhouse or something, but I think it was a house.
But I think, because he's a writer, and so he works from home. And so what he does is he replaces the cabinet door to his stationery closet with this, massively ornate antique door. And of course, the door opens a doorway to another dimension. And, well, yeah, there's, stuff in that other dimension. And obviously it's not good. So, thus ends that guy. Then we don't get another customer because somebody breaks into the store. And we get the wraparound story concludes the film very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the actual wraparound story, like it should in anthology films, works with each individual story and brings them all together to form one complete movie. And it was interesting to boot, because Peter Cushing, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's such a creepy dude. Like, if he wants to play creepy guy, he totally can play creepy guy. Peter Cushing's so good. But it's definitely. I'm trying to think. I really liked the first segment. I thought that was really well done. That had some of the best effects going on with it. The second one, I don't know. It
was kind of weird.
It was a little because I don't know.
It went off on like
it just like it changed gear, like it went off on another rail type thing, and it was just like, whoa, okay, I get it. This is the weird aspect. We've finally gotten to it, but it just because it wasn't introduced earlier on in the segment, it just seemed really out of place when it came into effect. So I still ended up liking it overall.
Oh.
But I don't know if I'd put it up there simply because it just seemed very, flip-flop in the storytelling. The third one, in terms of story, wasn't much. But I will say, like, the exorcism scene, oh my God, talk about wire work. You actually get, that's a beautiful thing about, today's modern televisions and such, right? You get to see those wires. So, yeah, stuff's flying across the room and tumbling over and whatever. And, yeah, sometimes you get to see those wires. Clear as day. But still, I kind of like seeing the wires because it's kind of fun. I'm not supposed to see them, but...
No, it's not...
I did get a chuckle because one is right front camera, right there. It just topples the thing over. You're just like, but this is right there. And then you get the fourth one with the door, and it's it's very similar to the first one,
Yeah.
right? Very similar in nature to the first one. So I kind of liked that. But at the same time, I kind of would have liked something a little different at the same time. But overall, I enjoyed the film.
Yeah, I liked it a lot because this is the kind of thing that I like.
Yes, you do have a tendency to like anthology films.
I do. And not that this was like Tales from the Dark Side or Twilight Zone. Well, okay, a little bit
It
similar,
did have a very Twilight Zone-y feel.
Yeah, so I love that. Also, love that stuff. So, even if this was, like, horrible, even if every story in it was horrible, I'd still probably kind of like it. Because I just like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, like, the first one and the last one were my favorites. The first one, probably more so, because it had more of the, like, seance-y thing, and then there was a thing going on, and, like, I like that stuff. So, yeah. And also, I liked it because it was, like, from the 70s, and I like that kind of stuff, too. Not 70s, but older stuff with it. And that's why I picked it, because I saw this, and I'm like, oh, wow, there's, like... 4 things going on in here, and it's like older. Perfect.
So.
But it's not scary.
No,
like,
it's not.
No, don't think anything is scary. But it's not supposed to really be.
Well, it would have been back then.
It would not have been scary. Okay, well now I'm thinking about how my mom said the birds were scary, so maybe.
Yeah. So, rating. What would you give it?
This is really, really hard because I personally like it.
Mm-hmm.
But for somebody who maybe doesn't like this stuff...
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm like a 3.
Yeah? I'm going to be going probably about a 3.5 on this one.
I was going to say 3.5.
I think it was really, really well done. And outside of the weird gremlin, elemental, seance, or exorcism segment, everything was pretty solid and worked together.
And I loved the wraparound thing.
Yeah, and the wraparound was
and the end
great.
Was good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had a good ending. Sometimes they don't have a good ending. But this had a very good ending. I could see it from beyond the grave too. Right? Like you could see it. I'd be all over that. So yeah, I recommend. I'm sure we're recommending this one.
Oh yeah.
But keep in mind it is early 70s horror. So if you're into Hammer horror, this is that that kind of style. This is what you're going to be in for. So keep that in mind when we recommend it to you. If you're into slashers and modern day horror, this isn't your thing. Don't bother with it. It's going to be really slow and boring for you. But that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It doesn't mean it's not entertaining. It just means it's not your thing. Right? So, yeah, there you go. Another film down. From Beyond the Grave, 1974, for the 31 Days of Horror. More 31 Days of Horror to come. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.